Good afternoon. You're all very welcome. Welcome to How to Nurture Your Network, Develop Deeper Relationships and Build Trust webinar. This is the third one in a series. So the other two are available on video. If you'd like a copy of either of those, just let us know. But we'll just give a minute for anyone who's a little bit late to turn up, and then we will make a start. I'm Graham, by the way. I should have mentioned I'm Graham Constantine of Digital Freelance. I invited you to this webinar. So it's 12:01, so let's make a start. So good afternoon. I hope you're enjoying the sunshine. It's lovely and sunny here in Brighton. I was thinking earlier of when I started nurturing my network, as it were, and I remember 1st of December 2006. At that time I was running a training business and I wrote my first email newsletter. And I remember all the people, I used to send them out to all the people who were on the courses after the course. And several people said to me, "Oh, this is amazing. No one else does this." I think things have changed just a little bit since 2006. But we're going to present to you today the very latest, the information that we use to structure our nurturing and develop relationship with our email list, and also with our connections on LinkedIn, and build trust, all of which I hope will be of interest to you. So a little bit about me. I talked about 1st of December 2006. I'm going to wind forward a bit to 1st of March. I seem to do everything on the 1st of the month. 2016, which is when I formed Digital Freelance. So we're a small digital marketing agency. We specialize in small business marketing with guaranteed results. And we work mainly with trainers, coaches, consultants, and tech businesses. I say mainly, but not exclusively. There are other types of business that we work with as well. And our main thing is results. So we have a return on investment guarantee of 4x in 4 to 6 months. But I'm not going to go on too much about that. This is mainly about education, but I'm just giving you the background. So 2 years after we started, 2 and a bit years, 1st of June 2016, our second team member joined. Well, technically third, but the other team member has now gone on to make her fortune in the city. Hi, Connie. I think you may be on the call, so I hope all's well. But our third employee, who's now our second employee, if that makes sense, Ruben, joined us. So he's also on the call. So I'm going to let him introduce himself now.
Thanks, Graham. Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a good day so far. Today, I'm basically just going to be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in there. I'll try and answer them myself, but if not, I'll circle back to them at the end. And if you would like the slides that we're going to be showing you today, please feel free just to put slides, please, in the chat, and I'll make sure you get a copy of those.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ruben. So yeah, all your mics are muted at the moment while I do the presentation, because we found that works better. There will be an opportunity for questions and answers at the end, and you can then either ask your questions in the chat or be unmuted, and we can talk. So whatever works best for you. But without further ado, let's continue. So as I said, you're very welcome. This is based on, if I started in 2006, that's 16 years of experience of nurturing email lists and people. Well, I say email lists, nurturing people is how I would describe it. So we're going to share all that experience with you today. It's going to be great. But before we begin, let's hear a little bit about you. So it'd be really fantastic if you could just introduce yourself, just tell us who you are, what you do, and most importantly, what you want to learn from the webinar. This will help me hugely to the structured examples and the content to fulfill your specific needs and requirements. So feel free to type away. I'll just get Ruben to check if there's anyone sitting in the waiting room that needs letting in, and if not, we'll continue.
No one in the waiting room at the moment. Everyone's in.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ruben. So do we have any information on who's on the call and what they would like to receive?
Not yet. No, we'll just give them another minute or two. Just
okay, brilliant.
Maybe they're typing long paragraphs.
Yeah, exactly. I'll drink some tea while we're waiting then, so keep my vocal cords lubricated.
Connie says, "Hi Graham, I'm a web and digital marketing analyst. I'm looking forward to learning how to build deeper relationships with my network."
Oh, brilliant. Hello, Connie. You're very welcome.
And Matt Skoog says, "Hello."
Hello again, Matt. It's nice to see you. I know we've spoken before, so I'm very glad that you could join us for this call.
And he says, "It's nice to be back."
Brilliant. Okay, so without further ado then, let's continue. Oh no, I think someone more has written something.
Oh yeah, Linda says she's from Professional Assessment Limited, like Connie, and also to extend to other areas of our work, i.e. developing rapport in assessments. And Jermaine says, "Hi, I'm Jermaine. I work in marketing too, but recently focused on developing a sports organisation. From the webinar, I'm looking to also develop good relationships with my network."
Oh, brilliant. Hi, Linda. Hi, Jermaine. You're in the right place, definitely. We're going to share some useful stuff as we go through. So without further ado, some of the things that I've noticed, these are particularly from LinkedIn, is that there are 5 typical responses that predominate. The first one is, I don't know if you've noticed, but on LinkedIn, there are now some pre-selected options, such as thank you, sounds good, thanks for connecting. If you get one of those, that is not necessarily a sign that anyone's put any thought into it, really. It's just clicking a button. There's still a response, but it's not as good a response as number 5, which is a more specific response that leads to a conversation. Another thing that I've noticed people do a lot these days is that the standards of social conventions or social norms seem to break down on social media. So people go straight in, "Hello, would you like to buy something?" Really doesn't work. I'd highly, highly recommend not to do that. Or no response at all, which is quite common, or not interested. But there is a better way. That's what we're going to explore today. So the proposition is, what if you could start more conversations on LinkedIn like a human being, which is kind of obvious, I think, using communication skills that you would use if you met a prospective client live at a face-to-face networking event. So that's what we're going to cover. I think maybe someone else has introduced themselves. Have they, Ruben? You're muted.
Yeah, that was Matt. He says, "I help leaders and ambitious professionals explore strategies for personal and professional development that delivers reliable results."
Oh, brilliant. That's a really nice USP. I like that. Fantastic. Okay, brilliant. So let's continue then. So this is the agenda. So the first bit is make your response conversational and friendly without going over the top. There are natural ways of communicating that are nice and easy and gentle, and I think someone wants to describe me as like having a consultation with a friendly doctor. So I think hopefully that was a compliment. Next step is to design the journey to educate and nurture your connections to appointment, webinar, or lead magnet. These are the most common forms that we find in B2B. There are other options available, of course. 3 is create a plan and produce content. 4 is know how long your content needs to be and in what format. And 5 is come up with intriguing, engaging headlines and how to structure, sequence, and chunk your content. The most useful thing to do in all of this is to study how people speak naturally, and then reflect that in the way that you produce your content. Natural speech has a rhythm. I've just been learning about storytelling, and one of the key things to it is to have a rhythm that enables people to follow what you're saying. You can use those same techniques in written communication as well. Most communication starts verbally and then becomes written communication later, because most of us, if not all of us, learn to speak, and most, I guess, learn to speak before we learn to write. So part of this is just remembering to just use normal spoken communication. The aim of all this is to develop more relationships, have more conversations, get more appointments and close more deals. This is predominantly geared towards business communication, but the rules that I'm going to suggest apply in other, not rules, but strategies is a better way of saying it, apply in other contexts as well. So that's what we're going to cover. So without further ado, let's get into step one, how to make your response conversational and friendly without going over the top. So the first thing, a lot of people, when I write copy for people in particular, they're not sure how to start a conversation. So sometimes they'll go hello or hi. The American version of hi is hey, I think, or dear question mark. I think one of my friends popped in earlier and said, oh, is it dressed down Friday? I said, oh, it's always dressed down Friday in our office. So I think generally, I was reading an article the other day that the suit has now officially disappeared from business. I know people still wear suits, but it's become much more informal, that's what I'm saying. So I normally start a conversation with, how are you? Hope you're well. That's how I would start a conversation if someone came into the office, or if I met one of my friends, or in fact, I think every day we have a project start of the day meeting, and I think I normally start with, how are you? So this is just regular, normal communication. You don't have to do anything too fancy. I would say generally, I normally start conversations, particularly on LinkedIn, with hi or hello. I'd rarely use dear, although some of our clients prefer to use that slightly more formal approach, almost as though they are writing a letter. So then once you've opened the conversation, then you want to create a bit of curiosity and intrigue. So in this case, this was an article that we worked on with one of our clients who's a branding agency. And the article title that they came up with is "There's no such thing as a free lunch," which is intriguing. It's not really clear what it's about, but it does generate some interest by being non-specific. So a little bit of intrigue in what you do is always a good thing. It opens up curiosity in the mind, so people are open to receiving new information. And then this is one of my favorite quotes from Rudyard Kipling. I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when and how and where and who. They're the basic structure of questions. And generally people will respond a lot better to a question like, hey, how are you? Than to a statement, the weather is sunny in Brighton, because it doesn't really invite them to continue the conversation. This also, as you go through this verse, you can see that they are talking about small people, like little children, who always have millions of questions. So any of you who are parents will remember that, I'm sure. 1 million hows, 2 million wheres, and 7 million whys. So asking questions is a really useful way to develop a conversation, and the most important thing is to be genuinely curious, which I think is coming up, and for some reason there we go. So the first thing that I recommend is to be human. And even though there are automation tools available, we strongly recommend it, particularly on social media, is doing this step manually and customizing the message to the person you're speaking to. If you have a quick look at their profile, you'll often find things that you share that are of interest. For example, I was talking to someone recently who was telling me that he was a lecturer, I think, at somewhere London School of Economics, I think it was, or London Business School, and he mentioned that he was teaching key account manager at Ericsson, and I said, oh yeah, I used to work at Ericsson. So we had a long conversation about that. So anything that or notice that we share an interest in marketing, or I notice that we share an interest in music, for example, is always a good way to build connection by sharing something, or maybe even sharing an insight. Try and respond as much as possible to the specific language that the person you're speaking to uses. This is really useful in copywriting and also in human communication. So generally speaking, the more formal education a person's had, the longer the sentences they will tend to use. Whereas someone who's possibly has less formal education will tend to use shorter sentences. Longer sentences take a lot more mental processing to understand what their sentence actually means. So you may want to use slightly shorter sentences than you normally would in communicating on social media. Try and resist the temptation to just use a simple yes or no, though. That will tend to stop the conversation from flowing. 3 dots is also a useful little technique to continue a conversation as well. And also, as I said before, I can't emphasize this enough, resist the temptation to go straight in with a pitch. It really, really doesn't work. I also talk about here about calming the crocodile and building trust. When you first approach a person, particularly if they don't know you, it will tend to trigger a fight, flight, or freeze response, which is what I call the crocodile brain. So you want to help them to understand that there's nothing to be concerned about or afraid of or anything. It's just a nice, gentle conversation, and that you are genuinely interested. So that is the first step then. So step 2 is how to design the journey to educate and nurture your connections to an appointment, webinar, or lead magnet, often known as the customer journey. This is a really, really important, and I'm going to show you a really interesting way to do it in a moment. So the way that we think about this is what we call reverse engineering. So it's to figure out where you're trying to lead the person to, begin with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey calls it, and then break it down into lots of little micro steps. So I'm going to show you in a moment how to reverse engineer a framework to have a conversation to establish whether the person that you're communicating with does or does not want the service that you provide or the product that you provide. The most important thing in all this is to help the person to make a good decision, even if it's not you. If you start out with a genuine intention to help the person and to help them make a good decision, or to help them put in or help to get the best out of them when you're reviewing their portfolio, to respond specifically to what Linda was saying, then you get a much better response than if you're trying to test them or if you're trying to arm wrestle them into a sale, which really, really doesn't work. Highly recommend you don't do that. So the smaller the steps you can identify, the better, because it's a lot easier for a person to take a small step than to take a giant leap of faith. I know a lot of personal development gurus talk about leaps of faith. It's not a good idea in a business context to have people take a leap of faith. It just doesn't work. So here we have an example of reverse engineering a face-to-face conversation. This is taken from LinkedIn. So you can see we start with the end in mind. The end goal is to get the person to show up for a face-to-face conversation. I had a conversation booked yesterday afternoon at 5 o'clock to do a demonstration of a new product that we're working with. And I missed out the really important step before that, to send out an email reminder. Because it's a new thing, we forgot what we already know. So the email reminder didn't go out, and guess what? The person didn't show up. People do forget things, and so if to get someone on a face-to-face conversation, one of the things that we found really useful is to send an email reminder. And I'm pretty confident that most of you will have received an email reminder for this webinar, and probably also a message on LinkedIn just gently reminding you. The step before that is to get them to actually book the conversation. So we use appointment setting software. We use Appointment Call, but other options are available. Step before that could be a free live or recorded webinar, similar to what we're doing now. Step before that could be a lead magnet. Sometimes we do use lead magnets, sometimes we don't. You can see those 3 steps there are ways in which the person could make the transition from social media into your email marketing system, in which case you would then start to send them emails. Before that, so in order for the person to agree to have a conversation with you, generally speaking, they need to know, like, and trust you pretty well. And getting someone to give you a call is quite a big step. So we've been working with a sales consultant in the States, and his thing is, like, get them on a call and I can talk to them and everything. And I'm saying, yeah, but before you do that, you need to deliver a lot of content to educate and show the person that it's safe to talk to you, and that you're not going to try and pitch to them, or that you're just going to have a regular conversation. So we use a variety of different information in order to do this. I'm going to show you a little bit more detail of that later, but it's basically a mixture of podcasts, surveys, live sessions, etc. And then before that, the first step is a connection request. So you can see that's quite a long journey in order to get a person to literally turn up for a conversation. Cutting out steps in this journey nearly always results in problems, in my experience. So this is like the obverse of that, which find the missing piece. So there's often a disconnect in the customer journey. The first one can be too much nurture and not enough pitching, which is overemphasizing relationship. Literally, when I first started doing this back in 2006, we used to do loads and loads and loads of nurture, to the point where one of our clients said, "But when are you going to sell to us?" So we just kept on nurturing. I don't think there's anything wrong with nurture, but you don't overdo it. The other end of that extreme is overemphasis on transaction, which is pitching too quickly. Again, that's not a good strategy. Sometimes another step that's missed out is just never asking for an appointment. So you just wait for the prospect to come to you. That doesn't work particularly well either. Or bombarding the prospect with too many offers. That doesn't work. That's too active. The other one's too passive. So we're looking here for the Goldilocks principle, which is to make the customer journey just right. So this is a framework. I said earlier that I'll show you a really great framework. This framework we found works really, really effectively. If any of you have seen our video, you'll have seen a living example of this structure. It's called Story Brand. It's based on the hero's journey. It's very effective, and the steps are a character, which is our hero or heroine. When businesses are first starting out, they try and make themselves the hero or the heroine, and so they concentrate on their what's often called a backstory. Much more effective to make your prospective client or your audience the hero or the heroine. Then, rather than you, so you become the guide, which is step 3, and then you give your hero or heroine a plan in order to make them even more of a hero or heroine, inspire them to action so that they avoid the problem that you've identified that they have, and ends in success, and then you can articulate what the transformation is from and to. So our customer journeys are nearly always, probably always journeys of transformation. It's a really good way to think about your customer journey. So that was step 2. So step 3 is create a plan and produce content. And in the content plan, it's normally a sequence of the items down the left-hand side with an engaging title and a date and an owner. So it's clear who's doing it and by when and what the title is going to be. I'm going to go into titles and the content, the format of this content, and sequencing of it as I go along through the presentation. So this is an actual content plan that we've created for one of our clients. So it starts with a webinar record. This is a client we've been working with for quite a long time. We wouldn't normally start here, but we start with a webinar recording, then a survey, then a blog, and then a video. So there's some of the elements. You can see each one of them have dates. Some of them have already happened. Some of them are going to be happening the 22nd. That's tomorrow, isn't it? Oh no, it's today. So it's going to be happening today, and then the 29th is next week. So yeah, it's also good to know what day it is, which I do most of the time. So that's the actual content plan. So now I'm going to get into know how long your content needs to be and in what format. This is where we're going to really go in depth with how we do things. So I'm just going to move the zoom control so I can see what I'm looking at. So the different types of content, we've got articles. We recommend using 350 words, which is the target that Google have set for SEO. There is other evidence, I know, and I think Paul Claro signed up for this webinar, but I don't think he's actually made it. He's got evidence that longer articles are better. We tend to stick to 350 words, and we put the blog on the website and as an article on LinkedIn. The video, typically 3 minutes or less. Some people would say even that is too long, but I like to keep them within like the 3 minute range. Depends on the age of your audience. If you're talking to the younger end of the audience spectrum, then 30 seconds seems to be becoming a bit of a standard, but I'm still a little bit old school, so I like 3 minutes. Although we have got videos that are 30 minutes long or more if we're teaching something in depth. We recommend posting them on YouTube because you get some traction on YouTube, and we also recommend uploading them natively to LinkedIn, typically as a post rather than an article. That's something that's changed recently. For a post, we recommend 3 sentences. I put a little question there, Facebook for business. There's a lot of discussion going on LinkedIn at the moment. Is LinkedIn becoming Facebook for business? Some people think it is, others think it's not. But if you have a particular cause or a particularly inspiring story, then you can now post it on LinkedIn, and it is kind of accepted. The 3-sentence structure is beginning, middle, and end, which is useful in creating a short story. Scaling questions, typically we recommend a single sentence. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your biggest challenge in whatever problem or whatever area of business that you're in, for example? So ours might be on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your biggest challenge in marketing your business, for example? Case study, we recommend single page. Describe the transformation before and after is really important. There is, I think, I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning that this is one of a series of 3. So we have got another video that describes the process that we use for that to articulate that transformation in more detail. If you want a copy of it, if you want a link to it, just put a note in the chat and we'll send you a link. Surveys on LinkedIn have to be maximum 4 questions, and for each of the question there is a limit of 30 characters. So you need to word the survey question quite precisely. Webinars, we normally advertise them for an hour, but I normally speak for about 30 minutes, which gives time for Q&A. We recommend using a LinkedIn event, is really effective, and also deliver the webinars on Zoom. That's what we use. Other options are available. So generally speaking, the further down this list you go, the more challenging or complex they become. Live stream, my example of live stream is I do DJing live streams every Friday evening. There are some new platforms that are coming out now, like Twitch, for example. Clubhouse is another place where you can do live streams, and also Patreon. That's a bit more of an advanced technique. I wouldn't recommend that for most of you. Okay, so that is I think this is step 5, isn't it? Which is how to come up with intriguing, engaging headlines and how to structure, sequence, and chunk your content. So, intriguing, engaging headlines. I've given you 4 examples here. These are the ones that we've written for different clients. So the first one is a question: what happens when your production capacity can't keep up with demand? That was Cohere Business Strategies, who were looking to get into do some business consulting. Rediscover your mojo. Dive back into the executive talent pool. That was for a career coach who was running a big event in the Bay Area in San Francisco, Joanna Wise. That was a bit of a hook. Metaphor is really useful. This was one of our blogs that did particularly well, which is how many ingredients do you need in your marketing recipe to make the perfect chocolate cake? That got a really good response. You could also study other marketers or writers. I've been doing that for about 20 years, I think. And the more I've studied it, the less I know, really, which I guess is the perfect example of mastery. Or if you really don't have time or want to, just raise the level of your copy a little bit, then hire a copywriter. That's one of the services that we offer. Other alternatives are, of course, available. And then select your images. Images becoming more and more important. And to be honest, I almost missed this slide out. Then I remembered, hey, I forgot to mention the images. So you can either use your own photos. Shutterstock is useful but quite expensive. FreePic ends in a K. I forgot to change the slide, so it still says C, but it should be FreePic with a K. Canva is really useful, or again, if you want to be a little bit more professional, you could, or not a little bit more professional, a little bit more designed, then you can hire a graphic designer. So structure and sequence your content. So this is the structure that we use on LinkedIn. So we do connection request, video using the story brand framework that I showed you earlier, an article which answers your prospects' questions, case study, scaling question, soft pitch, which is, hey, is it time that we had a chat, survey, and then a webinar. So we're spending a lot of time building relationship. I believe that is the best way to do business. And I believe that, nurturing, building a relationship, getting to the point where, having delivered all this information, generally, when I actually have a face-to-face conversation with people, they say, oh, we kind of already know you because we've read your articles, we've watched your videos, and we've interacted and engaged with your content. The other thing as well to just bear in mind is that even though it seems like nothing's happening, very often people are engaging with your content. Jeffrey Kiplinger, who we've been working with for over a year now, got a message the other day from someone saying, hey, we just love your content, it's brilliant, and gave him a really good testimonial. And I regularly get people saying, oh, I love your live streams on a Friday evening, even though I didn't even know they were listening. So don't be discouraged, just keep going. That's the main message on this, I think. And then chunk your content. This is a new thing that I'm exploring now. Is Edmund Pagan says the specific is the universal. The tendency when we're writing is to make it generic, so it theoretically applies to a broader group. But actually, if you name people and go into a very specific story, people can imagine it. They can use their visual imagination to imagine it. So coming out of the world of concepts into the world of detail. So this is a message that we sent out recently. Daniel popped into our office today. He takes care of our IT and popped in to show me how to resize the Chrome virtual machine he set up for us. How did we come to a business together? It's very precise, and it enables you to imagine someone called Daniel, even if you don't actually know Daniel, if that makes sense. Someone did respond and said, oh, we don't even know Daniel. So it does work. They were obviously trying to figure out who's Daniel. So yeah, we're experimenting now with being much more specific in the copy that we use. So that was a whistle-stop tour through how to nurture your network, develop deeper relationships, and build trust. If you need help creating your content, or even if you need help knowing how to communicate with people, particularly in conversations or in sales conversations in particular, we'd be more than happy to help. There's a link here, which Ruben will also put into the chat box that you can use to book a chat. It's 20 minutes, it's free. Hopefully it's like an appointment with a friendly doctor, as someone said. I love talking to people, so it'll be great. And all the people that I've spoken to have said, oh, that was really useful. You've really shed some light on the subject. Obviously, we do paid services as well. It's not all free, but we'd look, if you want to be a paid client of ours, we'd love that as well. But yeah, 20 minutes free, feel free. Book a time and we'll have a chat. So I'm just going to finish with a question. Are you ready to nurture your network, develop deeper relationships, and build trust? Hopefully the answer to that is yes.